I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
Welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Scot Harvath Podcast. How you doing today, Mike?
Chris, I am good because this book is a banger.
Yes, it is.
We've been talking up Spy Master and Backlash and how we want to hit this part of the series. And I feel like it's a little surprised that it came sooner than I thought, because I didn't remember Use of Force being this good. But damn, is it fighting for top spot right now in the series.
Interesting.
Hot take right off the bat. Right off the bat.
You're just coming right at it. That's tough. So what's funny, right, is we try not to talk to each other before we pod, especially with these, if we break it up into two halves, whatever. And of course, we recorded last Tuesday. We said we were only going to go up to, certain chapters, which I did. And then the next couple of days, I just turned it on in the car and
couldn't stop.
I crushed it. Like I finished it actually before you, because I could see normally when I'm going on, because we share an Everand account, it'll jump me to wherever you are, and I have to move it back. So I know when I'm ahead of you, when it's jumping me backwards, when I'm actually going forward.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know what your takes were. And to me, up until once we get to the Vatican and like that stuff is popping off, I think this was definitely in the running for top 3.
Yeah,
clearly. What doesn't sail me over that, and I think you called me.
I did. Hey, I had to call you. I had to get your take.
You're like, hey, you have a second? Can we talk? I'm like, all right. Well, you don't often want to talk. Not that you don't want to talk to me. We chat. We text a lot. No, we text a lot, or we talk at the pod.
I just had to call you. I had to.
Exactly. And I knew exactly what you were going to say. That this book could have been top 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, like any. But the very ending,
it was just a letdown after 95% of pure awesomeness, and the last couple of pages, maybe a chapter or 2, was just this hold stop in the middle of the most awesome action and build up and suspense of this possible attack that we could have imagined. And the book just peters out in a hotel room, a little shootout, catch him in the stairwell, end of story.
And we get some off, they talk about rolling up the other dudes off page, off chapter.
Yeah, and there were 6 mortar teams, and they rolled up one, which was kind of a letdown. They very quickly just shut it down, and we're like, oh, we could use the phone to track the cell towers and know where the other guys are. Oh, and then they had to call in, right? The mortar guys, they were going to wait for the next window when they had to check in. So as soon as they turned on their phones, we get their locations and hit them. All that to stop the major attack we've been building up to happened off book without us knowing. And it was just a paragraph of summary in the final chapter. Damn, I wanted to see that. I wanted to see Largento, kicking in doors, and Scott and team, and maybe even Deborah Lovett getting her hands dirty and going to roll up these dudes and stop the mortar attack. And then it almost went off, or one went off, and then they had to do something to stop it. We need that last minute dramatic finale. And it just fizzled.
Yeah, so
getting there was awesome, though. Getting there was
kind of our
phenomenal.
Hot take coming out the gate. But I will say, you're right. I loved the first half of this book. I loved, 99% of the second half of this book. It's just that end. I wanted more. And maybe that's, that's a sign of a good thing that he did something very well. I mentioned this in the last pod. This book and the last book have something very in common, that it's getting a guy to get a guy to get a guy to get a guy.
Sure. But it's different.
But what's different is that this one is way more engaging, way more interesting, way more creative in what we're doing. I didn't even think about it until I had to start thinking about it for the pod, Yeah. But in this case, it works. And throwing in, obviously a sucker for Italy. So are you.
The Vatican stuff, yeah. Even the Mafia stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we haven't really besides the Russian mafia, we haven't really like delved into this, area before. So it's very interesting going into the history, bringing something cool like the entity, this like Vatican CIA, whatever. I'm imagining like that the Sarsgaard guy from Angels and Demons, like he's the head of the protective detail for the Swiss Guard. He's acting in a suit, and he's like that was so cool. I wanted more of that.
Yeah,
I wanted more of that.
Give me some Angels and Demons, inject it right into my veins. And that moment I called you, I had just gotten through the scene where they go into the secret L'Entità bunker, that the secret Vatican agency, and the nuns are coming out of cubicles with like files and back doors. Like these underground...
And he looks into this room and it's just a bunch of other nuns like typing.
Bunch of nuns. Yeah, imagine just nuns as intelligence officers just crunching data and shit. Like nun spies. Like I thought we're going all in on the Vatican. And they're talking about the Pope's, public appearance. And he goes into St. Peter's Square and he's even talking to one of the guards and he picks up his ticket. I'm like, all in, baby. Let's go. And that's when I pulled into work. I was like, okay, this sucks. All day I was at work thinking about, I want to drive home. I hope there's a lot of traffic. I mean, I want to get home, help my wife, but I want to finish this book. I'm like, I'm looking so forward to crushing the last, I think I had 20 minutes left on the audiobook. And I'm like, on 3-speed, of course. I wanted to crush those 20 minutes so bad. And then I go in, I listen to them in the car, and I'm like, it's over?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Really? That's it? I was like, I wanted all the Rome stuff, the Vatican stuff, the attack to happen or nearly happen. Instead, they're like, we'll track some cell phones and roll them up later. We got this, guys. We're good. Let's hide out in this hotel room and do this whole thing again we just did with... So there's my one other nitpick. And you're right, just to back up. This book almost is the same formula that if you rewind 3-4 pods ago, I was complaining about. So guilty as charged. I was bitching about.
But it's more interesting.
It's more interesting.
More. Yeah.
You said it perfectly. It's just more creative. It's more engaging. And something about the plot that's crafted to take us through these guys works for me. And that kind of happened right off the bat with the refugee scene. Like the migration piece of bringing Marzouk, the chemist, in through one of these boats on Lampedusa, that island off of Sicily, that really off of Tunisia, that all the migrants are trying to get to. It's like all that's real world stuff. Migration/refugees being a hole in a lot of European countries' plans to let bad actors in and terrorist sympathizers and ISIS and their suicide bombers through. Can't be more relevant. Look at our southern border, right? Like if they've been doing it in Europe for all these years and they're in bed with the mafia, why would they not be in bed with the coyotes and the drug smugglers and the cartels in Mexico to get into this country? So it's like too close to home. But all that pays off when we have to roll up one Sicilian guy in the Cosa Nostra. So I'm like, okay, that's the Sicilian mafia. Makes sense because the smuggling. But then he's in touch with the 'Ndrangheta, the Calabrian mafia, which is on the mainland, the toe of Italy's boot. So I'm like, you've got that connection, which I buy. So you roll up one guy, you got to go to the next guy because he's handing him off. And all the while, everybody's slowly connecting back to Tursinov. Even the Libyan dude, Halim, who was the smuggler, he knew who the mafia contact was. And then that mafia contact knew the next mafia contact. So for some reason, it's the same formula I've complained about in the past, but when it's done properly as it is here, it's super engaging, and I was along for the ride, and I never felt like these guys don't matter. Now, the one little nitpick there, and it works, but it got me hung up for just a second, is nightclub in Palermo, nightclub in Calabria. Did we need to go after the mobsters in the exact same way, sneak into
different nightclub, though?
They were different. Sure, they were
very
different.
The one he was going, they essentially... Yeah, it was a nightclub, but she had the apartment above the nightclub.
And they snuck in through the roof, and Deborah Lovett had to come. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the other one is they're actually like playing it up.
They're clubbing.
I felt like we spent a lot of time like
in the club.
Like they went there, they scoped it out the night before. They're there the next to this if there's this very long scene going on.
It's different.
And if I had to sacrifice like that to get more of the ending, like I probably would, but I'm not.
I would sacrifice the first nightclub. Just kind of have the one nightclub scene go right to the mafioso who maybe was overseeing both of it so we can get more of the Vatican stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Cut out one mafia guy or one nightclub. But the second nightclub was awesome because it's also bringing in the social media tools.
Yeah, exactly.
The way Nicholas manipulates the really Facebook algorithm to make sure that the mobster goes. I don't know, but it was Tinder, Facebook. It's got to be late 2010s, late teens, mid-teens maybe. Stalin is good on that Tinder. The way he gets Tursunov's, or he gets the aunt, La Formica, he gets his
17.
He gets his lady friends on Tinder so that when they're at the club, they have this connection. I love, Stalin in the club was awesome. Even Scott, he was dancing with those chicks for a little while. That was a fun scene.
Like this crew. We haven't really dealt with them that much, right? Like this is one of the first times we're seeing them.
Well, we've had the individuals like Haney and Stalin.
Yeah. We've had them but not all together.
They've not been a team that Scott, and Brad says that. Did you listen to that afterword by Brad?
Yeah.
He does a really good interview.
Highly recommend people go on to just listen to that at the very end.
If you buy the audiobook, it's just worth this 20-minute interview that Brad does at the end answering questions. And one of them is, I wanted to show Scott as a team leader. And we've said a bunch of times he gets a haphazard team that he just runs into and has to recruit a couple of people to help him with the mission. But this time it was an actual pre-planned op, as if he were a SEAL again, or in the SEALs. He was operating in the SEALs, in the teams, and he had to lead that mission. So I love that part of it. And then Brad even says he wanted to get into Scott's feelings. And you see that here when his two guys get shot. He does get a few moments of relaxation. One of them is at the solarium at Vela's place in Malta. He takes a moment to himself. A couple of other places, he stops and thinks about Lara and his future. And I feel like mission accomplished for Brad. If he wanted to have Scott as a team leader, the team was awesome. And if he wanted to have him stop, reflect, and be a little more human to advance this whole family life plot that's been put on hold, he's really hit pause on it. I feel like Scott is much more of a human in this book than 3, 4, 5 books ago.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And I think, it's kind of like at the very end, right? We're setting us up for, some potential real tragedies or, a new age of what Brad is going to do. He's going full-hearted. We have the Parkinson's of the old man. We have him taking over along with Lydia Ryan of the Carlton Group. Laura coming back from Boston, what's going to happen there? There's so many questions that are left unanswered at the end of this book. Yet we've gotten to know Scott a lot more in this book. Yeah, dude, I love this book. This is definitely top 5 for me, 100%.
Yeah. Same here. I can't see much knocking this one out of the top 5. When I called you that time, I was like, yo, this is going to be up there with Lions. I was like, is this my favorite in the series so far? And then I got to the ending and I'm like, it's just a little bit below Lions.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? The Lions stuck the ending very well.
Yep.
It's just
it's taking a leap forward, though. You're right. It's doing something different in the series. Maybe it's not taking that leap forward that we know the next 2 books will do, but it's that first step, Sure. It's like a triple jumper in the Olympics. You got to do that 1, 2, 3, and then zoom, launch yourself. This book is definitely those first 2 strides before the long jump. It's setting us up. It's the launch pad.
Yeah, and I feel like at the same time we've grown since Lions in the sense of how Brad writes. We do globetrotting here, but it's not as egregious as some of his other novels. I felt immersed in a lot of the locations that we went to.
Agreed.
Which I would never ping him for that. He's generally pretty good at that. And the flow, the flow with this novel, the pacing.
Yeah.
We mentioned it a lot in the first part, but the development of this villain in Tursunov, I think that also elevates it because the last book didn't have that good of a villain.
Right.
Putting the investment, having built that quality villain that you understand, you spend more time with. I think like you even, maybe it was one of your notes that I read, but just this idea of, you texted me in terms of, and you can get into it, but the main differences between the abridged and the non-abridged.
Right. We have to come back to that.
There was this one little piece that you said that was missing in the bridge, not in the abridged, but this train ride.
Yeah.
I feel like it shows, it's an interesting like insight into the mind of Ellen in terms of like, all right, he romanticizes these things, yet he's never going to be fully satisfied with what he gets, because in reality, these things don't exist. And point in case is that, he thought of this train was going to be like all special and he gets all this food, but it turns out like the train sucks and the food is awful and, he doesn't get a good night's sleep. Like it's just nothing that he thinks will, and that could be related to what, ultimately he wants to achieve, right? Like, yeah, he thinks he's going to make these grand changes, but in reality, nothing he can do will actually make that change.
While at the same time, he's attempting to destroy it. Like, he's part of ISIS, who hates the West for their opulence and their luxury.
Yet he wants to mimic it.
He wants to mimic it. He wants to savor it. He wants to be a part of it. But it's almost like he knows it's a mirage. It's not real. He'll never be a part of it. And so therefore he turns to destroying it and takes enjoyment in that. And you're right. So this does connect back to the abridged versus the not abridged, because I pulled out this little scene, like you said, of this overnight sleeper car that he's dreamt of. And I think he's seen it in a magazine, and he's like, how symbolic it will be. It was in a book, right? He's like, how symbolic it will be for me to take this uber luxurious train ride, say in this overnight car, very Agatha Christie-esque, right? Get served this opulent meal and sleep on the train, and then wake up and pretty much blow Europe apart, with his attacks. And all of that really gets cut in the abridged. And I was praising the abridged, and I still do, because the pacing gets better. As we've said, a few Brad Thor books get dragged out, they get really long. But I'm feeling a little guilty for that take. And the reason is, it's scenes like that bring thrillers, I think, to a higher level, like that level of art, as we talked about, as opposed to a beach read. If you read the abridged book, you get an amazing beach read. You get the knockout, action after action, suspense after suspense, kick-ass, take names, shoot 'em up scenes, and it's awesome. But I felt a little guilty because even Brad said in his afterword, it's about the details for him. He really wants to take readers into this universe, and he cares deeply about that verisimilitude of, you can recreate the real world in these stories. Their universe can feel as real as your universe, as if you're immersed. And once you cut those details, you lose something of the artist. You lose something of the creative vision. You lose something of the attention to detail that the author is willing to give you. And he says, my readers make a deal with me, whether they know it or not. By buying a book and spending time with my characters, you're making a deal that you will suspend your disbelief. You will enter this universe, and I, the author, will make you enjoy your time there. I will make it worth your while. And it's details like that I think make it worth our while, that flesh it out. I've criticized them for going too long, being too distracting, just get to the next scene. There's a lot of filler. But now I'm starting to see, and this is why Brad is on another level than any of us, it's where his genius is. Comparing Tursunov's meals right before the Tuileries attack, he's having this grand meal. He's top of the world. He gets to see the glass explode, and he almost enjoyed being part of the attack. Like, he could leave with the crowd, and as everyone's crazy, he can just calmly walk out. And like, even if he got shards of glass in his eyes or whatever, he picked a booth that wouldn't get damaged too bad. But he had this grand meal. He savored it. Everything was so perfect. And then he got to destroy it and revel in that. And here he is saying, I'm going to go have this train ride and do it all again. And he has to go to the supermarket and get like cheese and crackers and shit and like crappy wine that he brings on the train. And he ends up throwing it away. He's like, it's oily and terrible. And I just thought that's a symbol of this guy's downfall and his hubris and his pride of all these attacks coming to an end. And not everything is as it seems. And his pragmatism versus idealism, right? His ideals are the ISIS, the perfect Islamic, vision of everything. That's crumbling. That's falling apart. It's just this downfall done through these meals, one in this opulent restaurant, won this crappy one on the train, which didn't meet expectations. If you lose all of that, are you really entering into the universe that Brad wants to give you? Or are you just a junkie, an adrenaline junkie looking for the next shot, which I was in the abridged version. I was like hyped up on it. And now I'm like, but what am I missing? So abridged versus unabridged, different purposes. I would recommend the abridged for a quick read through, maybe a refresher after you've already read the book and you want to revisit it a second, third time down the road. You do lose a lot. I'll say that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Did you lose did you lose the intimate scenes that he had in Malta with Bella?
You lose some of it. We knew they were there to, get some R&R and recharge, and that happens. You don't get the depth of it though. Yeah. The other place, it's not that I noticed a huge difference, but because all the action is there, all the suspense is there. There was a scene where another part where you lose something. No, it was the ending. I was wondering, because I read the abridged version first, is that why it just petered out? And would this ending have been better? Would the Vatican stuff have been fuller?
No, that wasn't the case.
And then you told me it wasn't, and I read the full version, and I'm like, damn. I was hoping to say that was just a downfall of the abridged, but it wasn't.
Yeah. No, I think, there's a reason that authors, I don't know why they make abridged stuff, but I guess it's for people that don't want to read full novels or you don't want to listen to full novels. But yeah, I think you're right in saying that it's the little things in between these novels and who even is to say that, who decides what gets cut out in the abridged,
Yeah.
So it's do they truly understand what the author is fully going for, with certain things they're trying to decide to cut. It's a very interesting idea.
You know what? I thought of it. The other part that got cut was a lot of the Page, Jordan, and Viscovich stuff. That got a little oversimplified, where it was hard to keep up.
I wanted more of that. I thought it was great.
I agree.
It was great. When he freaking turns heel and freaking shoots the dude at the end.
Yeah, because Jordan wouldn't comply.
Yeah, holy shit. I thought we were going to go, but then I'm realizing that I only have 30 minutes left in this audiobook.
Yeah.
Brad left a lot on the page, that I feel like he could have gone a lot more, and that's, maybe it's a good thing, sometimes these novels go on a little too long. And we know that when we talked to him about, was it Rising Tiger, that he had been pushed, or not pushed, but directed by the editors, by the publisher to make some hard choices and make some shorter books, shorter chapters, engage readers. Us young, what are we, millennial, Gen Zers? So we're not Gen Zers, but
millennials.
I know we're millennials, but engage the Gen Z. But are any Gen Z people actually reading these novels?
That's a good question.
Love to talk to a Gen Z person who is reading.
I think we're among the youngest readers. There's probably a few in their 20s, but I don't know if you're getting many readers in this genre below 30. Would you say?
I don't know, because I got handed these books at age 21. So
yeah, I got into them when I was a teenager. So I mean, it was okay in high school. But
yeah, and I had friends in high school that were reading Tom Clancy and that kind of stuff.
Maybe Jack Carr. I feel like he's had a couple of young followers who are into kind of that military stuff, kind of like that new generation of, people who are rah, rah, join the Marines. Now it's rah, rah, these cool SEAL characters out there in fiction. I feel like some of them get into those books. Those youngins.
If anyone listening to this knows Someone who is under the age or around the age of 20 reading these books, whether it's Brad, Jack Carr, Mitch Rapp, Don Bentley, we would love to talk to you. Yeah. Just get your perspective on them.
Yeah. Remind me, where do we leave off with Page? Because he's kind of a good domestic villain. Was he alive in the end?
No. Scott picks him up and then takes him to Bella.
He's with Bella.
No, takes him to Italy. Sorry, he takes him to Italy because remember he has a outstanding warrant in Italy for that Bosch op.
That's right.
And then
the Italians get him.
Puts him with a bunch of diamonds.
That's right.
That they had secured for a rainy day.
That's right. They did get him. Viskovich. Okay, that's something that was completely cut from the abridged or really put into like one sentence and move on. Like the whole Jordan Page thing, they almost overlap. Viskovich, they scared the shit out of her, I remember, by talking to her at the tavern, at the Blue Door, at the Lock House. They let her go. What was the pretense of letting her go?
And then I thought for sure that Jordan was or Page was going to come after her, and he was going to kill her. We don't know what happened to Viskovich, so
we don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty cool when they rounded up the bugs, when Lydia Ryan and Reed Carlton found out they were being bugged. And we got to remember the troll. Nicholas had a really good role to play here, and he's getting even deeper into the CIA and getting to be in the loop and, one of the boys. And they roll him in with the suitcase. That was neat to get him into Langley.
Yeah, what was the name of that?
Well, that's program.
Software?
Yeah. I always forget the name, but it was pretty cool how he was able to use that. Oh, and then the hospital too, how the bad guys were using a server in the hospital because they'd be protected by HIPAA laws.
Oh, yeah, Viskovich was. Yeah.
Yeah, Viskovich and Page's company basically had the resource to set up the server inside one of the biggest hospital networks in LA?
LA, yeah.
And so they could build a super secure server because of all the HIPAA protections. They were allowed to make it really, really secure. And they secretly hid another server in there that Nicholas was able to track down and get into. And then mislead them with the emails when they thought they got into Ryan and Reed Carlton's emails. So,
yeah, no, everything that was going on with this B plot was great, and I wanted more of it. I was here for it. So
yeah,
like, there's sometimes where that kind of stuff takes me away, but I enjoyed it too much.
I think that's when I complain about we're just rolling up the villains, is because I'm like, go back to Scott doing something else, and we cut to a random tertiary, secondary character we don't really care for that much, or the B plot we don't care about too much. And that goes back to the afterword as well, because Brad said he turned in the manuscript and was worried his editor might say, spend more time on these other things, less time with Scott. And he said he didn't even realize he was doing this when he wrote. He had longer stretches of scenes with Scot Harvath and team. And I think that paid off.
I could feel it.
The Libya op, dude.
Well, yeah, we said that.
We were on the Libya op for many a chapter. And then the same thing happened with the nightclub and all of our Italy scenes. When we're hopping between Sicily and Calabria and the nightclub, and then even to the Vatican, I feel like that was one long stretch getting to see Scott and his team doing what they do without too many cutaways that were distracting. So it was cool that Brad mentioned that in his afterword, and that his editor loved it. She said, no, I think that was really great. It gives you time to develop Scott as a leader with his teams, and it keeps us in the op. It keeps us in the game. And we, the last few books, have said we wanted that. Quit jumping around so much.
You feel more engaged to each individual action set piece, right? Because when it's allowed to, without like jerking me around, trying to connect the villain or a B plot or whatever else you want to put in. And he placed the chapters with Tajik and with,
perfect places.
At perfect places. Places that made sense. So,
Yep. Can you imagine if he stuck the landing at the Vatican? This book would have been essentially 4 amazing set action pieces that I would have remembered any one of them as defining a novel. Burning Man, Libya, Italy and the Mafia, Attack in Rome and the Vatican. Like, we just went between 4 incredible action pieces, each one that we were there for a little while at a time. We did the work, we spent the time, and we were bought in. Buy-in, dude, off the charts score, 5+++++ on the scorecard. I don't know if you can get a higher buy-in score on a book.
Yeah, do you want to just jump into the scorecard right now?
Yeah, let's do it. I think we do it. Yeah.
All right, so buy-in, you're giving it a 5.
Giving it a 5 on buy-in and action and plot. Chris, what do you think about the action?
Whew. We, like you just mentioned, we had these 4 amazing set piece actions, and I think highlighted by the first one we have with Burning Man is so great. And even like the action suspense we get with Tajik, with seeing these attacks unfold, it's really high. I don't know, 9.5. Like it's.
I was gonna say,
It's very high for me.
9.5. I don't want to dock it too hard on the ending. You know, the guy comes to the hotel room, you catch him.
Yeah, that's probably like where was it right before that? Is that where like who slips on the clay roof? And
that's the Black Cat in Palermo.
Was that in Palermo?
No, no, it isn't. No, maybe it isn't.
That's in the Vatican, right?
No, it's earlier
No,
because what's her name? Lovett catches.
Yeah, that's in Palermo.
One of the guys.
You're right.
I think it's Stalin. It could be Stalin's out of the game.
She catches
Morrison. Could have been Morrison.
One of the operators, and saves his life. Yeah.
Yeah. When she was the one nervous about walking on the roof,
right,
and didn't like heights,
right.
She saves him. Yeah, cool little cut scene, but 9.5. The only half point gone is because that ending in the hotel.
Yeah, saved for me.
Yeah. Plot. I bought into everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's when you like a book, it's like this. I'll ding it again in plot for a little lack of creativity towards the end, in terms of everything we pointed out with what we wanted to see, what we would have liked to see with fully completing this end storyline. It, like you said, it just felt like it. Boom! Like we just,
is it a full point though? In plot, in terms of the story.
No, so I would give it a 9.5. So that's a full point taken from the story for that. Essentially, what I'm doing.
I'm with you. I'm going 9.5 there as well. Buy-in, like I said it before, I don't think you can do it any better. I was bought in. I never really quite stopped to say, hey, that doesn't make sense, or this is weird. The only hiccup would have been the double nightclub stuff of, didn't we have this mafiosa in a nightclub and then we rounded him up and we're just going to go to another nightclub and do it again? But the scenes were so different. They were in different places, different motivations, and different ways the team operated. One, they go into the roof and they take the guy. Another one, they set the honey trap with Lovett. Pretty cool scene, too, in the cabana when he's attacking her. And she couldn't spike the drink.
Shows up out of nowhere and then saves the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was bought in. I have to give it a 5.
Okay.
We already dinged it on the other stuff, mind you.
Yeah, I mean, I really have nothing else to ding it from, like, the very end. You know, I'm bought into the idea of, you know, the use, like you mentioned, the use of migrants to use as a weak point to try to get people in. You know, every attack seemed feasible and, like, you know, scary to the extent that I felt like each of them could have happened. Yeah, so I'll just go 5. Yeah, like you know, we dinged it already for what we thought.
Yeah, you're right though. Using the migrants was a great cover for us to say, wow, this could really happen this way. What do you say for good guys and bad guys? Why don't you give us a rundown on each?
Yeah, you know, I think like Tajik is one of the better villains in this story or in this series. We get, you know, he's pretty well thought out, pretty well. We get his motivations. We spend a decent amount of time with him. You know, I think in the end, he's kind of brazen in the sense that, like, he's at almost every single attack. Like, besides like the Burning Man, like he just keeps getting closer and closer to the attacks.
Yeah.
That ultimately leads to his downfall, right? That's how they're able to track him. And again, like they're able to track him because they were just rewind the tape and they see where he came from. Like, this guy has just pulled off 3 crazy attacks. He wouldn't have thought, like,
there's cameras.
You know, there's
the
cameras
Vatican.
I
hadn't thought of that. It's a good point.
You know, this idea that which was only brought up like once or twice, but he was trained by America and Russia, and now he works for ISIS. Like, I wanted a little bit more of that, or I felt like was good enough to be like a 2-book villain, you know, because like you had he's almost like a mastermind, right? You had like the villains that were carrying out each attack, but then, you know, he could have got away, like, but, you know, I guess Brad doesn't really do that kind of style like Vince would.
Yeah,
so
it's a good point.
I don't know. He's a solid like 4.5 for me.
Yeah,
he's not like the best villain of all time, but I think he's definitely better than like a lot of villains we've had in this series.
I agree. I think he's a really strong villain, but that perfect 5 is that multi-book villain. I think one who actually has consequences, not just a bomb goes off somewhere, but consequences like you hurt the protagonist. You personally hurt the protagonist somehow. I think that raises the villain to the next level.
I think of, who was the villain in the Andrews and Wilson series?
Yeah, the guy who gets radicalized. Yeah, the drone operator guy. I don't know the name, but the way you're so personal, you're inside his life, his family, in his head. Yeah, that's next level. And that doesn't quite reach that point here.
That's a 5, you know?
That's a 5. Yeah, I agree. I think, or, someone like a Hank Clark, multiple books in the Mitch Rapp series. You knew Vince's thing was the ultimate villain who you are going to hate and gets under your skin isn't necessarily the terrorist guy. It's the corruption. It's the people back home. Like, you're doing something different with villains.
Kasim is his name.
Kasim, yeah, from Andrews and Wilson. I think this has to be a 4. And then if you factor in also, all the guys along the way are good enough. Like Halim, the Libyan, Ragusa, the Sicilian, the Ant. They're all good enough, but they're not 5s. So I think a 4 is where I got to settle on the bad guys.
Good score.
It's a good score. Good guys, on the other hand, from Deborah Lovett.
When do we not go 5 on good guys? We have yet to find a book that we don't go 5 on.
With Brad Thor, he just creates a great cast of secondary and third level characters. All the guys on the team, Morrison, Stalin, Haney, especially for Haney, I would say. And he's going to be a big leader in the Carlton group now, kind of co-sharing the role with Scott. I think because we're getting development from Haney and Stalin and crew, I'm going 5 on the good guys. And can I jump ahead to my 5 out of 5 little bonus free space for a minute?
Sure.
Also contributing to good guys is Argento.
Oh, dude. That was sad.
Pour one out for the dude. Pour one out for him.
And I texted you, wow, we're getting a reference to Path of the Assassin here.
Wild.
Well, I guess it's both Path of the Assassin or whatever the follow-up novel is.
Meg Cassidy books, yeah.
Yeah, the Meg Cassidy books. But yeah, he was this pilot that flew Scott and Meg Cassidy in that vineyard when they're having, saving the day with that, little peace, like accord type thing. And he was the pilot. Like
it was him.
And it was just cool. Like that's an interesting idea because they never said his name in the novel. Yeah. So like Brad could have just pulled anybody.
He had a mask and a balaclava. Yeah. He's like, I know you, but you may not remember me.
You may not know me. Yeah. I thought that was great. It was genius.
And he's pulling strings on the Italian side while at the same level, he's reasoning with Scott and being like, Scott, dude, there's some laws we have to follow here. I'm not you, I'm not the American SEAL going crazy, do whatever he wants off the chain. He's like, I got to play by the rules here, and you just got to work with me. You got to give me something. And I think they really see eye to eye. They're very different operators, but I think he and Scott have a mutual respect that builds up very, very nicely. Even when Scott's pissed off that Argento's trying to keep him within certain boundaries of the Carabinieri. But great character. Sad to see him go. That's going to be my free space.
Sad.
So yeah,
very sad. That's a good one. That's a real good. Do you want me to do my free space while we're on it? Or?
Sure. Yeah. Give it to us.
To me, it's got to be entità, like the entity.
Yeah.
This idea of this Vatican intelligence. So cool. We get those two guys named, like they just have one name. Like and they're super bland, like American names.
Like Johnson or something.
Like, no, it's like one's Paul and one's like Bill. Like, that's not their names.
Yeah.
And if you have anything that's going on with the Pope or with the Vatican, like these are the guys who are in charge. And like, I just thought that whole little spiel was great. I wanted to kept me wanting more. Brought me, I guess, because I love those Dan Brown, Rome, Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code. I love those style books. So, and then that sort of like reminded me of that. That's my free space.
Dude, great choice. That was a fun nod. And Brad's Faction, that's one of those drops where Brad Thor makes you want to go just pick up some nonfiction books, read some articles. Did you hear Brad say that? He also was inspired by a lot of this of real stuff. Not only the laptop of doom, where they found all the ISIS plans. Also, he got in touch with a journalist who worked on the links between ISIS and the Italian mob. and basically these boats of these refugee people coming in and trying to get into the EU. And there was like a journalist covering all this. And so he reached out to her and she gave him all his stuff. Well, same thing with the Vatican intelligence. He drops that and I automatically want to go off and read and research and find a documentary on it. Brad does faction better than anybody else. The godfather of faction.
Have we seen Brad in Italy this much before?
Scott?
Well, I guess he was there before with the attack in Rome.
There was a bus attack at one point.
Yeah. Well, and then also like the whole, Path of Assassin with the silver-eyed and her brother and they have that
some
whole
vineyard
encounter in Rome. So yeah, but like here I felt we were, because one, we spent a lot of time in Sicily and then in Calabria and then going up to Rome. I felt, sort of jumping over to Seton, I felt that was very prevalent. And then also like Libya was, not that I've ever been to Libya, but I've watched like Parts Unknown. I've watched other things. It felt like I was there,
It felt like Benghazi. It felt like 13 hours.
No, it's true. Yeah, you're right.
And don't even forget Burning Man. If you go from Burning Man to Libya to all the Italy stuff, wow. Any one of those, like I said before, in a book is a great set action piece. Any one of them in a book is a great setting, and we get 3 knockout settings here.
All in one book. Yes.
Is it the 5, though? Or is there that little edge of immersion lacking from one of them that brings you to a 4.5? I don't think you can go lower than 4.5, though.
No. But there's no. When I think of a 5 setting for Brad, he sets his standards very high
with the Apostle.
So yeah, like that is quintessential Afghanistan, and then I think back to like Lions and just the description, like literally feeling like you're on, Interlaken, like in the Swiss Alps. Yep. Here, I felt immersed, but it's not quite there. So yeah, I think it's not a 5, but it's a 4.
Yeah, it's a 4.5 for me too. It's so close to having that edge. I think I felt it in Burning Man. Like right off the bat.
He kind of has this vibe that when you're reaching that height of ultimate setting, it almost like makes your body. I don't know if it does for you.
Feel
like
it.
just
no, you feel it.
You feel it.
I felt it at Burning Man when this scene opens. I felt it. I was there, partially at Libya and partially in Italy too. Italy, I think like I can't really identify with the whole club thing. Like he probably described it perfectly, like it was written real well. But I just personally can't. Couches in a nightclub, popping bottles behind the VIP line, just a little too gimmicky in terms of my personal taste. So it was written perfectly, but I just didn't access it with that next level feeling you're describing. So that's the 0.5 point. On to the covers.
Save the best for last.
We saved the best.
Or did we?
The best.
Or did we? Okay.
The best of a cover C, maybe.
Taking cover A.
Yeah.
Just for what
Start with the basics.
Is as a cover. You have this chopper. What kind? I don't even know what kind of chopper. Is that an Apache?
No idea. That would be my guess, but
we need to get Don Bentley on here.
With like coordinates overlaid on it.
With coordinates overlaid on it. It's cool. I like the color scheme. I like the lettering. I like the, kind of like shadowing thing. What the fuck does this have anything to do with the novel?
That's the problem, dude. I love, like you said, the color. And it comes after A Foreign Agent, which had a similar looking cover with the grays. And I feel like it plays off of that one so well. But it has nothing to do with the book. This is not a helicopter book. Like maybe they take them to go a few places in Italy. I remember they're flying over the house and everything of the mobster, but it's not a chopper book. And that map like makes me think if they're on some remote mission somewhere, relying on these maps to kind of scale mountains or something and find coordinates. If this was like a geographic mission-based book, maybe. I guess the thing that comes closest to that is Libya. but it just doesn't have the feels. The cover does not match the feel of Burning Man, Italy, the Mafia.
Yeah,
you could have used any one of those.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't have it.
I just don't understand it.
Now, what about cover B? Does the mountain thing, that desertous mountain, do that for you? Is this Libya? They're pretty flat, though. It's pretty flat territory over there.
Isn't he on the coast? He's in Tripoli?
Yeah,
I'm
near
pretty sure
Tripoli? It's flat.
Because, well, one, they're there because that's where the boats are going off, because they're tracking down
to get to Italy.
To get to Italy.
Yeah, the smuggler.
So,
I'm not getting Libya from this cover or the coastal areas.
Oh, it looks like Arizona.
I don't get it. And then the logo, again, it's making me think aviation for some reason. Flight and aviation and pilots. And this book really doesn't have that.
We're on the ground.
What's with this logo, bro?
I don't know. This is like the whole rebrand, where they have one symbol, that's supposed to sum up the novel.
Cover B.
I don't understand what this did I read the wrong book?
Name.
What are we missing here? What are we missing here?
Speaking of aviation, what do you think about levitation? Remember that scene where Scot Harvath just decides to fucking levitate in the middle of nowhere? What is happening in cover C? It's fucking Superman, Kal-El coming down over here. He needs a cape. Not all superheroes wear capes, but Scot Harvath certainly does, because he's just fucking flying. What is happening?
At least below it, is that the Vatican? It looks like it maybe could be some Italian city.
It's possible, but if you're going to put the Vatican and not include St. Peter's, what's wrong with you?
Right, true.
So
what's up with these equations at the top in a bomb? I guess are they trying to go for the
explosions?
There's a threat. There's explosions.
Could it be the Tuileries? Is it the gardens in Paris?
Oh yeah, I guess maybe that does look more like a French city.
And the explosion would make sense. So maybe it's not levitating.
It also has mountains.
It does have mountains.
You don't see mountains from Paris.
From Paris or Rome. Maybe surrounding Rome. Yeah,
you can see the
mountains in the distance.
Surrounding Rome in the distance.
Yeah. But would you see Superman Scot Harvath flying through the air?
No, that's so weird. So D is cool because it's the exact same cover as A.
Same thing, yeah.
But you change the Brad Thor to green. I kind of like the green Brad Thor, to be honest.
Sure, yeah. I don't know what it's doing there, but sure.
That's the cover. That's the book I had. I think that's the mass market paperback.
Yeah, that one's definitely the paperback that they decide to make green. Probably so it stands out more on one of those airport racks or pharmacy CVS racks. The green lettering, I think, stands out more than the gray. So more helicopters on F and G and more kitted out operators on E and H. At least the kitted out operators make me think
makes sense.
They're on the Libya op or they're doing something. They're okay.
Wait, am I completely wrong? When are we in a helicopter in this novel?
I don't know, man. I don't know where they got the helicopters
from. Other than
the
one time where they hire a guy with Argento, they go
to fly over
to do a pass to get a picture.
Yeah, they cross the Strait of Messina to go from Palermo to Calabria. They don't use it for anything else.
When we're in Libya, we're just constantly going around
on the ground using. You could even have the technicals and actual vehicles that they're going around in.
Right. If anything, you would be better served with a drone strike in the middle of the Libyan desert.
Completely agreed.
That would make more sense.
When they get the air support from the ship.
Right. When you think Brad's about to die, when you think Scott's about to die.
They don't even come in on choppers for that. They don't even extract the team with choppers. They jump out with the equipment and go by boat.
To boats. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has nothing. And this is the biggest fucking shame because to this point, we only took off 1.5, 2 points. This book was shaping up to be upper 40s, one of the best. And now we're going to let the cover just completely tank it.
The cover A taken as a cover is kind of cool.
If you're just going design element, nothing to do with the book, if we're not judging the cover by the book, this could be a 4.
Sure. 3.5, 4.
3.5, 4. But once you judge the cover by the book,
it's a 2.
Can we go higher than a 2? No. Some of these could be okay, dude, Flying Man is a 0.
Yeah. But I think A and B do enough to give it a 2. I don't know.
I think the design of them...
I kind of like F. I don't know, like, it's like I don't know what language that is. Puzudi silly?
Yeah, it's something Eastern European. They do crazy shit. There's another Hebrew one in G. I think E would be my favorite, if anything.
You don't like a face either. That's the British, right? I'm guessing.
I think that's actually the Italian, but it's in English for some reason.
Oh, yeah. In I guess because it has the quote in... Yeah, cover E is probably pretty cool.
The master of the techno thriller. E is pretty cool. I know we got a face problem, but at least it's kind of silhouetted out. I think there's a major miss on this cover, but the book is so good, it hurts me to put a 2 for cover. 2.5. 2.5.
I'm giving it a 2. So we're going to differ by half a point then.
That's the only difference we've had?
Yeah.
I don't want to tank the book on the cover, dude, because the book is that good.
So let me total this up here. 9.5. Wow. 45 for you, 44.5 for me. That's a solid score.
Solid score, but if you take out the cover, that's a chance to be a 48. It really is.
It was on track to be a 48.
It was on track to be a 48, so that's a shame. But that does mean it's one of the highest rated we've done so far. Even with the cover deduction, it's tied for...
Still one of the highest, yeah.
One of the highest, but if you remove the cover deduction, it's up there. It's one of the highest scores we've done. Great book, and I think it's just a harbinger of what's to come. Of this thing's only going to get better.
I'm excited, bro. I can't wait. Like the next book, I'm so excited.
Let's dig in. Let's do it. We've got a lot, though, before we come back to Brad Thor. We're going to at least cover Plum Island by Nelson DeMille over on No Limits, the Thriller podcast. We've got a great interview with Ward Larson and his new release, Dark Effector, which comes out in February. Again, over on No Limits, the Thriller podcast. And what else, Chris, did we say we wanted to do in January?
To find your... Did you post this on
It should be posted out and about. Yeah, people have been commenting on it a bit. Here we go. The Seventh Floor, McCloskey. So, little Dark Vector, The Seventh Floor, Plum Island, and then we'll be coming back to jump into Backlash, Spy Master and Backlash.
And then Backlash, yeah.
So maybe we'll bump one of those up so we can get to Spy Master on the sooner side. But by February or mid-February, we'll get Spy Master out to you and a couple other episodes on the Thriller podcast feed.
Let's do it, bro. All right. Well, we need to thank our patrons.
Before you thank the patrons, since we put in the time and effort on a limerick, let's wrap this puppy up with a quick little limerick.
You got to do it.
ISIS and the Mafia in bed. As bombs go off, the dread. To Italy we go. Argento's a bro. Ryan will lead in Reed's stead. Ryan's taking over. Lydia Ryan.
That's, you were struggling there for a little bit, and you landed the plane.
Appreciate that. Unlike use of force. Just kidding.
All right. We need to thank our patrons. Our Deputy Director, Sherry F., our Special Operators, Jason C., our Special Agents, Ben, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Don, Peggy, Mark, and Chris. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons, soon to be 1. No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. You can find us online at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Insta. Mike is firing off those Instagram videos. Go check them out at Thriller Podcast. And as always, just let Argento be Argento. Is it Argento?
L'argento in Italian means silver, so I'm guessing. I'm doing the audiobook on 3-speed, so if I miss some names.
Yeah, it's the worst when I'm like making notes and all I've done is listen to the book. I'm writing these people's names, like how I think they're spelled.
We barely talked Deborah Lovett, who was a good character, but
she was good. this interesting juxtaposition of career CIA, sort of what's wrong with the CIA, right? Like that she is hamstrung or like her first instincts are to talk about, I can't do that, or, sort of instead of going fully into the mission, like her first instinct is not to do that. And that's what obviously Brad and Scott is commenting on, what the CIA has become up to this point, what Reed wants to change by, what he tries to instill.
Let him loose.
In the Carlton group. So, but in the end, I liked her character. She did ultimately, put up and showed up when needed. So
she got her hands dirty. But I would say she also was really good at her job in that the Italian authorities trusted her. Yeah. Even the Vatican people. Like, I think they knew she was the American who will liaise with them and be straight up with them, be forthcoming, not break their rules. Like, maybe now she sees Scott's side of the, the coin, that you might have to bend the rules a little and strong arm these people. But Lovett was always somebody willing to be the good soldier, like, the CIA's version of the good soldier, it seemed like, and advance America's interests without really getting involved in the shady shit. And now she like sees the real world, the world of operations, and is like, damn, maybe things are more complex than I naively thought. And I get the sense she would only want to double down with her job, like with what Argento meant to her.
Sure.
That was really nice at the end. Yeah. She was hit by that. And so I think if Lydia Ryan in the Carlton group doesn't want to lean on her, or Scott wants to put in a good word with Bob McGee, her boss, her ultimate boss, I think I would like to see her around again. I really would.
Yeah, me too.
At first I was like, is this Brad being Brad? Are we going to get the attractive lady who comes in, does something awesome, makes Scott think about her and, question his love with Laura, and does she come on to him? Do they have their moment? No, none of that
didn't happen.
It didn't have to happen. But at the same time, they had to use her as the honey trap.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. Like that.
Yeah. It was just yet again the female character, this attractive woman, probably in her early 30s, because Brad always says that, who they're going to use and doll up and all this. Okay.
Just let Brad be Brad, man.
You got to let Brad be Brad with that. Yeah. We could have been the Athena ladies, bro. This is what they're for.
Yeah, you even texted me that. You're like, yo, or said it on the last pod, whatever.
Could have been the Athena ladies.
Perfect opportunity to bring in, Casey, to bring in any one of them.
Yeah, completely. To have one of them in the club with you is like, they got your back. You're good. And they can get the attention of the guys. Yeah, Deborah Lovett pulled off that role. If you're not going to do the Athena ladies, you want someone like her. And the other reason it didn't affect buy-in is that he thought he might need the translator. When he goes into the Black Cat, they don't know if the Nigerian mistress, she would speak English and Italian. But anyway, they don't know if Ragusa speaks English, and in his other escapades, he might need a translator. So he's like, you got to come with us. So I bought that part.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, love it.
Love it.
Unintended.